Welcome to the Retail is Detail podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Hamer. This is where we go beyond the headlines and get into how great retailers and tech innovators really think, from trading to teams to business building to tech, loyalty, and data. Every Monday afternoon, I talk to the people building, running, and reinventing retail, unpacking what's working, what's changing, and what's next. If you care about the detail of retail, you're in the right place. I'm joined by Laura Simpson, the co-founder and CEO of My Bespoke Room, which is the UK's #1 rated interior design service, and recently launched SaaS product, Design Pal Pro. Laura, My Bespoke Room was acquired by Michael Bruce, a co-founder of Purple Bricks, in 2022. What was harder, though, building a company from scratch or navigating expectations after an acquisition?
I think definitely building a company from scratch for sure. I think I was quite naive in the beginning. Obviously, My Bespoke Room was an amazing idea that was born out of like a personal frustration of mine. And I think anyone who has a great idea, to actually get it to come into fruition is a long and laborious journey. But I would say it's small incremental steps every day that get you there. And you don't go from nothing to 100 in one go. Definitely that was the more challenging part for sure.
And was there a specific moment of building the company that was just it hit home how hard starting something new is?
I think when you start a business, you have to do everything. Like you are CEO, you are you're doing all of the admin, you're speaking to clients, you're raising money, you're tech support. So I think just having to do absolutely everything yourself, because in the beginning it's all about proving the idea, right? It's scoping it out, proving you've got product market fit, and then ultimately selling the story and being able to bring others on the journey with you. So I would say that there was so much I absolutely loved, but one of the big things that I didn't know too much about was the whole fundraising side of things. So, how do you raise funds? How do you structure it? How much should you give away? Or how do you value your company, etc. So that for me was probably the biggest learning curve in terms of like the brand and operationally setting it up and all of the ideas and the tech. We leaned on support and expertise for that. But I would definitely say it was the fundraising journey early on that was the biggest learning for me.
Awesome. And what advice would you have for brands that are looking to fundraise? What'd you learn?
Always take on more money than you think, for sure. I think get some expertise in the area. Obviously you're not meant to be a master of everything. So therefore, just you need to educate yourself. I think it's a lot easier now with AI. You can learn a lot quicker than maybe perhaps we did in the early days. But so you surround yourself with really great folk, and when it comes to raising, it takes you out of the business for a long time. Even if you do it quickly, it's still, you're not focusing on growing the business. So my advice is always take on a little bit more money, give yourself that extra runway, and you'll thank yourself for it later.
Awesome. What was the moment you realized interior design was more than a hobby and something you could build a business from?
Oh gosh. I think there was a couple of moments. I'm not an interior designer by trade. I was an engineer, but I had an obsession with home renovation. And I think it was probably after we had our first few customers and we got that really positive feedback. And then about 6 months in, we went onto a platform called House quite early on, and that brought us a lot of customers. And I remember them calling us up and saying, just to let you know, you're in the top 10 interior designers in the country. We were like, what? So from launching our MVP and putting it onto this platform and getting a lot of users on there, testing it out, we managed to get some real cut through because it was quite an innovative model in terms of flat fee pricing, transparency. We weren't overcomplicating things. So I think that was the moment I realized we were on to something truly special.
That's really cool. And you met your co-founder Diana back at L'Oreal. What made you think we can do this together and leave our corporate jobs and do something of this scale?
Oh gosh, I think it was a combination of things. I mean, obviously you get to know each other quite well as friends and as colleagues. You kind of know where each other's skill set lies. And we were both at similar stages of our life, if I'm being honest. We'd both just had our first children. So we were on maternity leave. And I just thought our skills were quite complementary. And she also had a passion for interiors as well. So it was like a passion, the right timing, and the right skill set, I suppose.
Amazing. And obviously, being a mom of three girls while running a business sounds intense. How do you balance that creativity, leadership, family?
Do you know
How do you make
what?
that work?
It's not easy at all. I'm not gonna lie. I have first of all I have a really supportive partner. Like I couldn't do it without his support. We are really truly a team. He does as much as I do when it comes to childcare organisation with our pink jobs and blue jobs, shall we say. So first of all, he's an amazing support. And I just have to be really strict with my time. I tend to compartmentalize things quite clearly in my head. When I'm with the kids, I'm with the kids. And when I'm at work, I'm like hyper focused. I'm not someone who gets easily distracted. I definitely get my head down and try and make the most of the day.
You bought your home and did a lot of the DIY and oversight yourself. Were there any lessons from that renovation and that project that you've taken to My Bespoke Room?
Yeah, loads, I think. I mean, get professionals in. Honestly, I mean, I think that the things that can go wrong and have gone wrong or when you've tried to cut corners or whatever, the amount of time you spend researching, trying to figure things out. I mean, honestly, you just lose hours of your day. So I think for me, it's all about getting the professionals in at the right point because ultimately in the long term, it saves you time and money for sure.
So, and your sort of personal style, as I understand, is classic elegance with a modern twist, or new combined with old. What's a sort of antique or vintage item in your own home that brings that together and proves the point?
First of all, I love old homes with character features. So I guess the backdrop is something that's full of character. But I love putting modern touches in, and then I scour antique shops really for like those small accessories and finds. I've got loads of little brass jars and vases and stuff. Everything that sort of finishes it off. I love using sort of modern pieces, but with old antiques scattered here and there to complete the room. So that's my personal style.
Do you have like a guilty design pleasure that you might not admit to clients?
Well, probably my husband would say that I have a lot of guilty pleasures in terms of changing paint colors. Like paint is something that you can completely transform a room. So I do quite like to mix things up quite a lot, just change the backdrop of things probably too frequently. But yeah, I love it.
And you built, in some ways, quite a complicated marketplace. On one side, you've got your customers, on the other, you've got interior designers and the brands that you're able to purchase items from. What was the hardest, marketplace revolution and the book and starting a marketplace to talk about the hard side of the market and what's the most difficult one to get on the platform? Which was that for you?
We've got to attract amazing designers that work for us and then obviously customers to buy our products. So I think in the early days, designers, when we first launched our online model, it was a new way of doing the service. And I think there was a lot of designers out there that were skeptical about whether we could deliver such a premium service online. Obviously, with what happened in COVID and everyone accelerating their businesses online, that completely transformed the landscape for us.
Yeah.
And now we're a much bigger business. We actually don't find getting designers hard at all because they all want to work for us. So I would say that might have been tricky in the early days, but it's certainly something that we've obsessed over in terms of how we recruit, how we train, how we nurture the community. So I feel like we've got that down. But for me, it's certainly the customer side. I would say that's a more tricky side because it's very easy to attract people who would look at using an interior designer. But we're trying to really open up the market and make it, interior design for everyone. So trying to convince people who didn't think they could afford it is a slightly harder job. Obviously we can sell all the benefits and sell all the emotional side of it, but we're really trying to get into the hearts and minds of people to say you can afford this. It's going to save you money, it's going to save you time. So that for us has definitely been the harder sell to branch out and get a wider proportion of the UK market.
And what's worked there? How have you convinced people that interior design could be for them?
I think it's a few things. First of all, you've got to appear in the right places. So we know that people are 80% more likely to make a change when they're buying a property or doing a sort of renovation. So it's about being there and partnering with the right people like estate agents, Rightmove, Zoopla on the house platform. So it's about being in the right place, offering advice, demonstrating your expertise, etc. But it's also talking to them in a language that they understand. Like traditionally, interior design has been very hoity-toity. It's been very egotistical, and we don't do that. It's like talking to your stylish best mate. So it's all about the tone and language that we use. We're very much about giving free advice to attract people in. And ultimately, when it comes to like just playing into their pain points, really, the fear of getting it wrong, losing time, not wanting to make expensive mistakes, being frustrated with their room layout, being overwhelmed. So just playing into all of those pain points and showing how, we can be the solution for them.
Very cool. And your style is affordable, accessible, online, not intimidating. How do you ensure that that doesn't get any more snooty as you grow?
Well, I think it's our mantra is very much we talk to our clients like they're our friends. So
Mm.
it's like we're sitting down having a cup of tea, a bit like a chat like we're now. Like if you were start asking us questions, it's right, okay, I'm going to give you like what I really think, like with a little bit of humor there, empathy, understanding where you're coming from, and actually just using plain language and layman's terms that you understand and giving you confidence in the choices and the sort of decisions that you need to make. This is not about us imposing our style ideas or impressions on you. It's taking great advice with really great designers. One of the things that's really important to us is it's a bit like a doctor's bedside manner, we call it. You can have an amazing
Mm.
doctor that doesn't have a great bedside manner. You can have an amazing designer that doesn't communicate well with their clients. Whereas we only hire and like nurture designers that are not only amazing and like great at what they do, but they're lovely people you want to talk to, work with, that make the whole experience fun. And I think that is so important to how you feel when you're having an experience, particularly one that's online, because it still needs to be very personal and emotional.
Yeah, sort of like best doctors get sued less often, not because they don't make mistakes, but because they're good with people. So how do you
Yeah.
train and nurture that?
How we do it is we've got a really specific design process that we take all clients through. So we give all of our designers a really clear framework on how to deliver the design process, first of all. So we give them confidence, we share ideas between ourselves, etc. But we also teach them the art of just building personal rapport with someone. And to be honest, it's not something that can also be taught. Like you have
Yeah.
to hire people that really love people, love helping them, love chatting to them, love understanding those personal details that really elevate the client experience. It's all really about getting your hires right and then just fine tuning them through, I guess, training. The
And you have,
psychology of training as well as the actual physical design stuff that they have to do. It's taking someone
mm,
on a journey and doing it in the right way and leaving them with wow moments along the way. Does that make sense? It's like making sure that those delight moments happen regularly. We have a process that we take people through, and it's not like just a one hit wonder, you know, product that they're buying.
yeah, and you're working with about 50 designers right now, right? Or
Yeah.
is that about right? And so
Yep.
a lot of that is about the selection of the designers in the first place as to who is trainable and who is coachable and who already has some of the tools that you need.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And is it one in, one out at this stage, or are you always considering additional designers if they're good enough?
Yeah, look, we're always considering additional designers. One of the beauty of our model is we have some full-time designers that, and we have some like consultant designers, and those consultants can work full-time, part-time. It's completely down to them. So we always have more designers than we need, shall we say? Even if we don't have any vacancies right now, we're always talking to designers, and then we bring them on in different cohorts throughout the year. Any budding designers out there, please send us your details.
Awesome. And you know, one of the big USPs is, or things that you're trading on is a flat fee model. You know, how have you managed to maintain that despite competition, and how do you protect the value and the fairness of the price points that you choose?
We have designed a very strict sort of design process that we take our clients through. And we have done thousands of room designs over the years. And we literally time how long it takes to take each customer through that design process. And we're always looking at ways of streamlining those processes, whether that's through AI or whether that's through our own proprietary tech that we've developed. Part of the reason we can do what we do is, on one hand, you've got these amazing skillful designers, but they're really underpinned by the technology platform that we've built. And ultimately, that automates a lot of the administrative tasks, the sourcing, all of the stuff that takes designers so much time,
Yeah.
which really allows them to focus on building the client relationship, making sure that they build that trust, they get the little details right, and they allow the tech to do a lot of the heavy lifting in the background to just make what they do more efficient. And that's ultimately why we can do what we do. And that's why it's quite defensible as well, because there's so many me toos that have cropped up over the years, but they haven't invested in the technology in the way that we have, that allows us to do what we do at scale while still maintaining the quality of the design up front.
It's great. Yeah. And I was going to ask, like, it's fixed fee, but these projects can be variable length and they can have surprises, whether that be rotting floors, damp. Like, how do you advise clients on and partners to deal with the unexpected costs or failures in design?
Our process doesn't get involved with the build side of it. We do it room by room. So we don't do, you buy individual room packages. So obviously we can do your whole house. That's not a problem. And you do get economies of scale when we do that. But we always tackle it room by room. Everything for us is about like paint, flooring, freestanding furniture, inspiration for built-in furniture, etc. We don't do rotting floorboard, shall we say. That's the builder.
Sure.
However, what we can advise people on is the contingency you need to leave generally for these types of projects, because there's always unforeseen things that crop up. And quite often that does sadly eat into people's budget when they want to be spending it on nice things like new sofas and rugs and stuff.
So do you then have sort of build partners who you can bring in or recommend for that sort of thing? Or or is that
Yeah, we
something you?
do.
Yeah.
We do have some partners, but because we're a national brand, our customer experience is paramount to us. So we don't have suppliers for everything all over the country, because we simply can't um, guarantee the quality of their work. So where we do have partnerships, we do a warm handoff and we do recommend people, but we will only ever do that if we've got full trust that they will do a great job. But that's quite hard to do in every corners of the
Yeah.
UK, because we're a national brand and we do design for anyone in the UK. So
When you approach these partnerships, whether that's, a referral partnership, a design partnership, how much of that is process and vetting, and how much of that is gut feel for you?
I think it's a bit of both. At the end of the day, in the world of entrepreneurship, you've got to trust your gut for sure. Quite often those decisions are made in your gut. But when it comes to the suppliers that we work with now, it's very much they're really vetted, financially vetted, service vetted, etc. So, for example, like we have 200 plus retailers, 1.2 million trade products, all in our systems that we can pull from. But if those retailers have bad customer service, if we get an abnormal amount of returns, we take them out of the system and we source from elsewhere. So in the beginning, you don't have those learnings. So you just have to go with what you feel is right. But as the business has evolved over time, I think what's really interesting is that we put a lot of our sales through top 20 suppliers who we know are amazing at quality and service and deliveries and all of that jazz. And I think that's what consumers get from us as well. Like, because we work across the entire market, we see what people are really like, not just from a product point of view, but from a complete experience point of view. So we do very carefully vet people now.
On the retail side, probably most relevant to our audience, what have you learned about product returns and after sales in the industry that most people underestimate?
We've seen so many people try to cut corners when it comes to delivery, and I won't name and shame,
Damn.
but but we've had one partner that used to do probably the most amazing delivery service, and we used to get feedback all the time about how they took away the packaging, and it was quite glove service. And then obviously they were trying to streamline costs, and they went to a new supplier. They just didn't have the attention to detail, and it was an absolute disaster for them and for us in terms of things turning up broken. It just cost them more money in the end. So I think what we've realized is that even though we don't deliver the furniture, that's an extension of our service and a
Hmm.
reflection of how
Yeah.
the customer feels on us. So by
Yep.
partnering with these people, it's really important that that whole end-to-end journey is a smooth one. And things go wrong and people understand that. But I think as long as there's a willingness to put it right, the whole delivery side is completely underestimated and people tend to jump into cost save. And actually,
Yep.
that's the last moment they remember the brand often. And it can go so horribly wrong sometimes.
When you're sourcing materials in terms of cost, in terms of quality, sustainability, style, where are you willing to compromise and where is a complete deal breaker?
When it comes to what we do specifically, if you think about a room, we actually have these are your core investment must have pieces. Your sofas, the stuff that you're going to spend hours and hours either lying on, sitting on, using, etc. And then there's always other things that I suppose more seasonal and can change. So accessories like cushions, throws, rugs, etc. So that's a very specific example. So anything that's got high use, anything that is you're really going to use, it's like cost per wear, right? It's like, you're going to sit on your sofa for over 1,000, I think it's something like 1,000 hours every single year. So that sofa's got to be right. It's got to be comfy. Think of the conversations it overhears. Think about all the moments that you share with your sofa. Like, you have got to get that sofa right. Whereas actually you can compromise in other sort of more impulse purchases. So we really
Mm.
have the 80-20 rule. It's like focus heavily on those really key items. And then those other items that are maybe less important or less costly, you can have a little bit more, I guess, compromise for those in terms
I
of
like
cost anyway.
what's important in a sofa for you?
Well, it's got to look good, right? It's got to look
Yeah.
good in my room because I run an interior design company after all. I personally am a squishy sofa girl. Like, I like lying back with my kids, being super, super comfortable. So yeah, I need something that's got comfort. And I don't like something that overtakes the room. I actually go for sort of textures and plain colours. And a big pet peeve of mine, sorry if anyone out there has this, but people tend to go for two sofas in the same fabric. It's not how
Hmm.
you do it. You have to choose different colours or different fabrics for your different sofas just to make it feel a bit more curated. So there you go.
And this is why you need the experts to
Yeah,
to
it just
adjust your
looks a lot more
cause.
put together. Exactly, exactly.
Fascinating.
You do.
Making me deeply concerned about the living room I have behind me. Can you talk to me a little about Design Pal Pro? Launching a SaaS tool when you already have a really good marketplace is, or agency is a common theme on the podcast so far. But why did you launch it, and what problem is it solving?
Yeah, with the B2C model, the consumer model that we've got, obviously I mentioned we developed this tech platform that automates a lot of what designers do.
Hmm.
And what we were finding is that because we have so many designers that work for us, some full time, some part time, we sort of were understand. They came to us and said, "Look, this is amazing technology. It's really automated what I do. It saved me loads of hours and for these projects. The sourcing side of it, because I mentioned earlier, like with the 200 suppliers, 1.2 million trade products, they're like, this is incredible. Can we use it to service our own clients outside of the My Bespoke Room network?" And so we took the technology, added some additional features, and basically spun it up as a SaaS product to test the market. This was a couple of years ago, and we let it run in the background, just really learning how other people use it. And what we've discovered is, although we've got all these features, there's three key things that they love. They love the inspiration platform behind it. They love the fact they can source any product from across the market. And they love the fact we take care of the logistics for them. So whether you're an architect, interior designer, interior influencer, you can focus on the creative part of your role and we'll handle all the logistics in the background and the product sourcing. You don't need to set up trade accounts. We've got that covered because we use the power of obviously the volumes we drive to negotiate better trade rates and stuff. So we just thought this is a real opportunity for us. So it's something that we're bringing to market properly in the next few months. So watch this space. Anyone out there who's thinking, my goodness, I could use a sourcing tool from across the market and I could use someone to help me manage my customer orders and deliveries. Well, we've got the solution.
Very cool. I at one point I looked at with an architect friend at launching a similar business just focused on Italian marble, but something that could do all of it. Presumably has a huge appeal. How big do you see that getting? How is this going to be your central business if we talk again in a year?
Well, look, I think maybe not in a year, but I think I see My Bespoke Room very much as our shop front. It gives us our credibility. We speak directly to consumers. We're doing thousands of room designs a year, like so we get huge learnings. So I think it's a really important. I think it's quite symbiotic. The tech stack sits in the middle, and you've got all the consumer learnings on one side, but then we're using those consumer learnings to build a kick-ass SaaS product that allows us to sell to, as I said, all the different market industries that I've mentioned. So I think come back to me in 3 years, and I think that the SaaS tool is going to be a much bigger part of our business. I think actually having both of sides is what gives us a really unique position in the market, really.
So do you see the interior designers that you work with on the platform also using this tool for their own separate business or
Absolutely. They
yeah.
already do.
Oh,
They
okay.
already do. So that's what's really interesting about it. We've got designers that work for us and use the technology to service other people. At least half of them do that. So that's what gives us such confidence we're onto a great thing.
hmm Awesome. And how do you balance the retail partners that you work with? You mentioned obviously top 20 and making sure they have amazing after sales and delivery. But, how do you support smaller, more artisan or higher end, niche suppliers? Like what's the balance and how do you make sure everyone's well represented?
We are all about curation. We go to extreme lengths to make it easy for our designers to know where the best places to go for sofas, mirrors, lights, rugs, etc. are. And we have some really big players on there, and we're integrated with wholesale suppliers, etc. But it's really important to find some of those unique pieces as well. So we do have a selection of smaller artisan suppliers on our systems. And what we tend to do to make it easy for the designers is we create collections. We might hand pick a few items and put it together as a collection because we're all about optimizing the design process and cutting down the time while still delivering amazing results. So anything we can do to make it easy for the designers will do. So we tend to look at all of these smaller suppliers, create pieces from them, and then put that in front of the designers. And then through that process, they get to know those smaller artisan people and get to know some of their ranges so that they can maybe they really like one of them, for example, they can sort of spend a bit more time getting to know their range. So that's one of the things that the retailers love about My Bespoke Room is we can get their products, big or small, whether you're a big or small retailer, we can take their MPD, we can take their product ranges and we can put them in front of like a highly engaged audience of designers and say, look, they might have 500 SKUs, but here's the 20 you really need to know about. And that is a really important message, I think, to give. And the flip side, we can go back to the retailers and say, there might be a sofa company, for example, that stick on sofas because we were talking about them earlier,
Sure.
and say, all right, we've sold 200K's worth of sofas through you this year, but actually we could have sold 300, but you're missing these three styles because we've got a
Mm.
view across the market, which is quite a unique position to be in versus someone who just uses John Lewis, for example.
That always lead to productive conversations, or is there sometimes conflict where the retailers say, "Oh, actually, really want to push this SKU, even though you don't like it," or I don't want to create that new SKU, or is it always
I think they always want to guarantee we're going to drive a certain volume, which of course you never
Mm,
can.
right?
I would say mostly it's for the suppliers we work with most that we drive the most volume through. It's always like positive conversations, and I think that's quite unique about us. We understand like consumer preferences up front. We then understand what they go on to buy, who they buy it from, at what price point, at what color, at what like order. And so why wouldn't you want to know that information really? So I would say on the whole, it's really good. But yeah, we don't give that out to everybody because obviously
Have you
we're
considered
business.
charging the brands for this level of data and user research?
Well, we definitely will. We're kind of at the point where we're tipping to that. We're at that level. We've got enough data points now to charge for it. We're looking at doing an industry report later this year. Up into this point in our journey, we've actually just worked hand in hand with the retailers to sort of give them snippets of information. Maybe not the full picture, but we give them snippets to help make the range better for us and the relationship more productive overall.
Nice. So now's the time to work with My Bespoke
Now
Room.
is time, especially when we launch the SaaS tool. Exactly.
Cool. And in terms of retail trends you're seeing, so modular or multi-use furniture, indoor-outdoor spaces, flexible rooms, are these forever changes or are these just fads?
I think they are forever changes, really. My personal view is the younger generation are having to stay at home longer. They're having to live in HMOs. They're having to sort of move from room to room. So I think anything that's easy to take down and put back up and travel with you is probably here to stay. So I would definitely say property is so expensive, isn't it? Your space is hugely well, it's so hard to get on the property ladder these days and actually get some meaningful square footage. So I think anything that makes better use of space and storage and multifunctional use is definitely here to stay.
Right. Awesome. We'll get smarter furniture as our spaces potentially get
yes.
smaller. And you say anyone and everyone can have a beautiful home no matter what their budget. But how can you scale that progress when budgets are so wildly divergent?
Well, genuinely, that I think the customers that we see, some people come to us, they've got less than £1,000 to spend to give their room a refresh, and then other people have tens of thousands of pounds. So ultimately, the products that we recommend, we have products from every budget, really. Obviously, there's limitations, and that's something we are quite realistic. Like if someone comes to us and said, "I want an entire living room for £500," we're like, that's probably not going to happen unless we get secondhand furniture here. So we are honest with our customers. We can't overpromise, but in terms of we can fit the majority of budgets as long as they're sensible.
And is the $395 per room, is that flat fee, is that still feasible and will be feasible forever despite how inflation and costs have moved?
Well, look, I think like any business, we've actually kept our prices the same despite NI changes and obviously and minimum wages levels going up and the knock-on effect that has and other salary levels, etc. So we've kept our prices static for the last couple of years, and we've just focused on improving our processes to cut the time down. That's what we focus on. So
Yeah.
I would never say it will never go up. I mean, of course, we're always having to review it sort of every 6 months, annually or so. But, we haven't put it up for the last couple of years. And instead, we focus internally on how we can be more efficient to keep the cost as competitive as it can possibly be for our clients.
And you've led big corporate teams at Apple and L'Oreal. L'Oreal, sorry. What are some things you learned that are really helpful in this venture, and what are some things that you'd never bring from big corporate to My Bespoke Room?
Oh, I think big corporates can be quite hierarchical, and I've always kept the decision making quite flat. Our mantra at My Bespoke Room is that you've got to be a CEO of your own role. So we try to set, I would say, really clear guidelines in terms of the bigger picture and the KPIs that people need to hit in order to be the big cog in the wheel. But we ultimately give them the power to make the decisions, even if they get it wrong. It's better to sometimes make a decision, isn't it, and learn and fail fast than procrastinate for ages. So I would say that some of the bigger businesses I've worked for, I wouldn't actually, not Apple, but yeah, there was a lot of people, a lot of levels, shall we say. But one of the really interesting things I learned at Apple, albeit it was quite frustrating at the time, was that genuinely there was a few decision makers right at the top, right? And you were always encouraged not to send emails, but to use chat, have conversations, make things happen really quickly, really informally. And I think that's something at the time I was really surprised about. It was like such a big organization, but the way that Apple could like pivot on a dime really quickly. You'd find out about, you knew that the new iPad or the new iPhone or whatever was coming, but you wouldn't get the details till 2 days before. And it was actually amazing how we all got behind the launches and made it happen because they were just so secretive.
Mm.
So yeah, I would say that the ability to stay nimble, even when you're big, is so important.
Right. So keep the nimbleness, remove the bureaucracy and the hierarchy.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Big.
That-
That's my
That's
big tip.
awesome. And, interior design influencers dominate Instagram, TikTok. Is that helpful to your business, or does that create unrealistic expectations that you then need to clean up after?
Oh gosh, I think everybody thinks that. Oh, there's a lot of people out there that like to think they're interior designers, but listen, I'm for making the whole industry more accessible. So
Mm.
the fact that people can get advice and inspiration from Instagram is a great thing. I think we as a business probably need to unlock how we work with interior influencers in a better way. We've got a few ideas on that, so
Mm.
watch this space. But we're not about paying people for promoting our business. For me, it's got to be really authentic. They've got to really buy into the bigger picture of what we're doing. So any interior influencer out there that is really passionate about making interiors more accessible, then we would love to work with them.
Okay, very cool. And make allies out of potential enemies.
Yep.
Um, and it's a crowded space, interior design. And there are big brands that offer a lot of free design or increasing the AI tools. What's the single moat that's going to prevent My Bespoke Room from being commoditized?
Well, I think if you use a brand, you're basically shopping from a catalogue. And for us, we embrace new technology. So we have got quite a few AI developments in place right now, launching very soon. And I think it's about that powerful combination of technology and human touch. So we can do what other people can't do quicker, smarter, faster, and more cost effectively. So it's how we use humans for empathy, creative input, all of the little finer details that technology can't do. Yes, AI can make things faster. It can digest information like anything. And, we are using it all for those benefits. But ultimately, it's the fusion of both the tech and the human side of things that what makes My Bespoke Room special and is what really gives us our defensible moat.
Nice. Can you give us a sneak preview of a technological tool you're bringing out that?
Yeah, I can. So we have been feeding in all of the room designs that we've created for My Bespoke Room since inception. We've run them all through AI. We've fed in all of our designer and customer conversations. Obviously, nothing confidential, just in terms of tips and advice, etc.
Sure.
And we are developing a My Bespoke Room design assistant that you can interact with. It obviously gives you some free advice, and it then says, hey, how about all of these designs that we've done for previous clients that might be of interest to you, so you can look at them as inspiration, and then it can link you in with the right designers who have designed those designs or who might be more suitable for your style, and it automatically generates the brief based on your conversation. So no more filling out of design briefs and that laborious task. The technology does the heavy lifting to extract all the right information, and then we bring the human in at the right moment to make it personal. So
Okay.
that's what
But the
we're
human
working
will
on.
always need to be part of that process,
In
or might it
some
not?
capacity, I would like to think so. I mean, who knows? In 10 years' time, maybe not. But I think at the moment for us, it's as I keep coming back to. I think when it comes to designing a home, it's a feeling. It's all of the small details that you can't quite train a machine to get to. So while I think it will become I think AI will become a bigger part of like the process, the machine in the background. It will all be about just making interiors more accessible, and I really hope we're at the forefront of making that happen.
But still, how you feel about your designer may influence the how you feel about the end design.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's so personal, isn't it? It's so personal. So I think Yeah, that human interaction, that human connection, that human touch, that personalization is really important.
And on that point of human touch, you're very passionate about female entrepreneurship. How much are we still underestimating female entrepreneurs in 2025?
Oh, I think it's come a long way. I really do, but I still think the gulf is massive. I was at a really incredible conference in Edinburgh a couple of last week actually, and it talked about men having 100-year head start on women, and it's so true in terms of pay divide is still there, access to funding. I'm not sure of the exact stat, but last time I checked, I think it was like 2% of VC funding goes to female founders. I mean, like that's just crazy when we represent 50% of the population. That's men designing for the majority, which should not be the case. I think it's really important to have diversity in everything that, it just brings better results all round. So I still think I think it's come a long way since I started this journey for sure, but the gulf is still massive.
What advice do you have for female entrepreneurs?
Go out there, believe that you can do it. You'll still be, if you're looking for funding, unfortunately, you'll still be pitching to men majority of the time. There's not enough females around the table yet, but I think you just got to put your big girl pants on and go out there and do it. And I'd say if you can try and find some really good mentors, people either in the space that you're operating, just who've been out there, who've done it, who've broken the mold, and just really use them for advice and inspiration. I think there is a huge want to get more females into businesses now. So I don't, and I think that's really important. But until there's more women at the table making those decisions, I think it's still a few years off, unfortunately.
It can be slightly tougher, but persevere.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And just moving on to the questions that we ask to each of our guests. In terms of the retail side of your business, what detail of retail do you like the most?
I suppose I love the orchestration of the customer experience. At Apple, we used to debate everything like the height of the tables, where the tables went, what products went where, the sound, the smell, like details really shape how people felt. Obviously, there's the whole process side of it, but then absolutely everything was thought about. And I suppose at My Bespoke Room, we were obsessed about the same things. So I think it's all about the details and orchestrating little moments that make a journey feel effortless. And being simple and effortless and seamless is really hard. But I love that whole thinking about the moments at every point.
Amazing. I love that. Simplicity is hard.
It is.
And related to that, what detail of retail would you most like to change?
The hard sell culture. Too many retailers chase transactions over relationships and really forget like loyalty. I always think you need to flip the incentive structure and reward people on value and rather than just instant basket. And also I think true personalization. We all talk about how everything's getting more personal, but obviously there's a whole load of tech that can help make things more efficient for you, but still so much of the messaging I see out there feels very generic. So I feel like if we got those two things right, the landscape would feel quite different.
And what's your most controversial prediction for the future of retail?
I think physical stores will most definitely stop being about sales. I think they'll really just purely be showrooms, content studios where communities come together, and all the sales will happen online. I don't think there'll be any cash registers very soon. And I think stores will all just be about, you know, billboards, people going in to spark desire, connection, and scoping out, should I say. I mean, we see it today, like, we send people to stores to do their research and they come back and transact online. um you know I went to try and buy something at the weekend and they carried one of every size and they didn't have anything in my size, and it felt so frustrating. Then you go back and transact online. So I think that's already started, but I think very soon retail stores will not be about sales. It will just be about pure experience.
Nice. Well, why, when you can get it delivered to your home, why would you buy it there?
Exactly.
Nice. And what's your craziest story from building My Bespoke Room or working in retail more generally?
Apple and L'Oreal, I've got many crazy stories. And I think at L'Oreal, anyone who worked there will remember the infamous Agon visits that they were called at the time. I think this is like the head of L'Oreal globally used to come, and we used to take over all of the stores and basically say, if there was no restrictions, this is how the stores would look if we could totally take over the world and put L'Oreal everywhere. And literally within a 24-hour period, we'd strip every other brand off the shelf and we'd put ourselves everywhere and put big pop-ups and anything that, anything that showed like the vision of where we wanted to take it in 24 hours. We used to do that. And I
stores
remember
would let you do that.
Yeah, they would let us do that. They would let us do that. So it was all about painting like the vision. But that's what was so good about L'Oreal. You knew you were maybe never going to get quite there, but if you could get closer to it than where you were. And it also allowed obviously the retailers to see like the vision that you had. So that was crazy. And I guess the only other one I mentioned earlier about Apple, like we literally used to find out 2 days before, like there was a big product launch. I mean, we knew it was coming, but didn't know the product specs, the sizes, nothing. And I was there when the iPad launched. I think it was my first week, and 2 days before we got all the specs, and literally we had to roll it out across every store in Europe, and it was mental. But we did it. We did it with a massive team. I think one of us knew the specs, one of us knew the size, one of us knew how many, but we had to put it out everywhere. It was all done under total secrecy. So that was absolutely crazy, because you think about how big Apple is now and how where it is. Like imagine just finding out 2 days before and then being like, we got to do this. And that was what it was like in the early days anyway.
Wow, that sounds like a recipe for very little sleep. Awesome. Laura Simpson, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for today's episode of Retail is Detail. This episode was brought to you by Loxa, the Klarna for insurance, protecting every retail customer everywhere. We support retailers in offering product protection on all major platforms, online and in-store, on all insurable categories. Visit loxacover.com to find out more. You can catch previous episodes on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or at retailersdetailpodcast.com. I've been your host, Jamie Hamer. Thanks for listening, and see you next Monday.